Welcome to Direct Approach, a biweekly podcast hosted by Wayne Moorhead, filled with timely insights, fresh perspectives, and actionable takeaways from your direct selling executive peers to help fuel the growth and evolution of your business. In this episode, Wayne talks with Brandi Huyser, Vice President of Integrated Health and Wellness Platforms at Amway Corporation. As one of the titans of the channel, Amway has held the number one spot on the DSN Global 100 list for 11 consecutive years and recently reported $7.7 billion for their 2023 annual revenue. Wayne and Brandi discuss brand strategy, market positioning, and the power of authentic partnerships for global brand growth. With over 27 years of experience at the world's largest direct selling company, Brandi Huyser has held leadership roles in marketing, sales, finance, and global market expansion, including a significant role in the acquisition and growth of the iconic XS brand. Throughout the conversation, she emphasizes the importance of co-creation, market trend awareness, and the transformative power of involving stakeholders in decision-making, providing a unique view into Amway's global brand growth strategies. But before we begin, this episode is sponsored by Exego. Exego was started by a team of experts that shared a single vision: to overturn the archaic, restrictive model of housing data and create an entirely new kind of platform from the ground up. From your first dollar to your billionth and beyond, Exego's platform scales in lockstep with your global growth, aspirations, and vision. With clients in 120 countries, supporting 40 currencies and 30 languages, plus over 200 open APIs and SDKs, they empower an existing tech team to control their own best-in-class solution vision. To connect and learn more, visit exego.com. That is EXIGO.com. Now, let's welcome your host, Wayne Moorhead, and our guest, Vice President of Integrated Health and Wellness Platforms at Amway, Brandi Huyser.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of DSN's Direct Approach podcast. I'm your host, Wayne Moorhead, and I'm really excited about today's guest. I've heard so much about her and have really been looking forward to this conversation. She has more than 2 decades at the world's largest direct selling company, has held leadership roles in areas such as marketing, sales, finance, and more, even global markets. She's also helped oversee the acquisition and growth of one of the most successful brands at Amway that we're all very familiar with. Currently, she's responsible for key elements of the company's growth strategy. Please let me welcome Brandi Huyser, Vice President of Integrated Health and Wellness Platforms at Amway Corporation. Brandi, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited. Yeah, I hope whenever anybody says you've been someplace for been here 27 years at Amway. And I love everything about it. You know, the mission, I love our ABOs, they're the heartbeat of who we are, but I just truly am just inspired by, everything that we do here every day. So just have loved my job. That's why I'm here. I love the mission. I don't really think of it as a job too much. It's really just, working with people that you love.
That's great. It definitely is an amazing company. If you're going to spend 27 years at a single company, that is definitely one of the companies to do it at. It has done so much right and has really been an incredible champion for all of us in the entire direct selling channel. So after this, please make sure you give our thanks to everybody back there at the home office.
You bet.
So you mentioned the incredible career and again, all of it being there at Amway. Can you tell us a little bit about the path that led you into Amway and into the direct selling channel?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I was in college at Michigan State and Amway was interviewing for roles and opportunities. And I had most people have never heard of Amway. Well, my grandparents were both sides of my grandparents were Amway business owners. So I knew Amway, I knew the products. I was super excited. So, I started right out of college, actually in the finance division, because that's what my degree was in. But I eventually made my way to marketing in North America. So I'm in the global position now, but was in North America in marketing for a very long time, which is super exciting because I was a spectator of watching, the conversation of the Excess brand and seeing how it came to be, because I was, in the sidelines watching how that unfolded. So to be able to, fast forward, be part of that acquisition at a later date in the global division was truly just something that was really cool.
That's really great. I love that you already had family members that were in the channel. So very familiar, not just the company, but the channel as well. And so we're very familiar with the impact that it can have. It's definitely, it can be a learning curve if people come, completely outside of the channel. So with that additional insight that you had, I know that made the transition, I'm sure, much easier and much more exciting. And I think it's really cool that you started in finance as well. It's such a great place to start and get the business fundamentals and understand the different levers to pull and the impact that it has from a sales and balance sheet perspective. So incredible place to start. Oh, go ahead.
Learning the sales plan is probably one of the hardest, hurdles at, especially a direct selling company. And so to be able to have that acumen foundationally it was a great opportunity for me as it led into marketing. So, like you said, it truly is, because it can take a little bit of time for people that come in from the outside that, have been in a traditional CPG background type. Yeah.
Yeah, it is a great foundational place to start. But kind of selfishly as a marketer, I'm glad you made your way over to the marketing and sales side as well, but brought that knowledge with you. So one of the things that Amway has always been just incredible at, I think it's one of its superpowers, is building a portfolio of global brands that have awareness even outside of the parent, Amway brand. Each of these brands, whether it's Nutrilite or Artistry, they have their unique positioning, a unique audience. And that's certainly the case for the XS brand, which is now an incredible $400 million global brand. So congrats on the growth of that brand. Mm-hmm. And I think looking at this acquisition and the growth and how you implemented it is such a great case study and essentially a masterclass in brand strategy and in brand management and brand growth. And so I'm excited to kind of explore these learnings that you had. I know that you've kind of identified a few key learnings throughout this process. And so I'd love to kind of jump in, and I want to start kind of on the audience side, which for me, on the brand strategy side, understanding and knowing the audience and what value you can provide them is a great place.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about the deep history, because I think there's some connection points I just want to make back to, the adventurous spirit of our Amway founders, which, Rich DeVos and Jay Van Andel. They were the original pioneers of adventure. Okay. So together in their early years, back in the 1940s, they decided to go on a great adventure. Okay. And that great adventure was merely like at a time, think in the 1940s, where there's no YouTube videos, there's no GPS units that are going to chart a path for you, but they were going to head down to South America and from the East Coast. And on their way down there, their boat sank. And I think what is truly interesting to talk about real quick is that Rich and Jay went on this great American adventure because they're an inspiration, but more than anything, they were adventurous and they had never sailed a boat before. Like, who in their right mind takes off, and goes on this great American adventure? And, they were lucky because at one point, their boat started to sink, and there was a passing freighter that saw them waving their hands and everything, who rescued them. They then employed them so they could continue on with their journey. And so my point about that history, about the great American pioneers, the pioneers of adventure, are that they combine adventureship with entrepreneurship. And that to us is really the DNA of XS, right? Because when Rich and Jay decided to start Amway in 1959, it was merely a continuation of their adventurous lifestyle. And I think that's something, when knowing that story, knowing the DNA of who they were, what was really unique as the connection point. So back in 2002, I was in North America at the time. I had moved over to the marketing division in the US business. And we had, there was a time where a lot of people were, people always brought us new products to try to see if they would, have an opportunity to launch within Amway. And we had two Amway business owners at the time, David Vanderveen and Scott Kuhn, who were very also carried that same sense of entrepreneurism. And, they kept bringing this energy drink to the marketing team and said, hey, I really think you should try this. And the business unit at the time was like, yeah, energy drinks are a fad, we're not interested. And it finally was the point where I really think that the leadership at the time just got sick of saying no to them because they kept pushing. And they're like, just give us a chance to launch this energy brand. And so finally they came to a pact where they said, okay, we'll launch it, but you're going to have to buy it back, whatever that first initial, product run is. If it doesn't sell within X date, you got to buy it back. So how important it is when you have Amway business owners in the channel who are, really excited about a product that they're bringing to life through our Amway business channel. And they were able to do it. I remember the conversation around, they turned it on a Friday. We bought a couple truckloads, and they turned it on Friday. And we were actually I had a digital commerce then, we had the e-commerce. So they turned it on, and, everybody was kind of waiting to see what happened. And I think a lot of people at the company were kind of anticipating this big, flop. And when they turned it on, I think we sold through all the inventory and everything within, a couple hours. And I think that was the beginning of, this beautiful story, because it relates so much to what, we just spoke about with Rich and Jay, who were these combiners of adventure and entrepreneurism and bringing that to life. And basically, Dave and Scott did the same thing. They brought it to life. And that was just the beginning, and what we learned was energy drinks are not a fad. We can very much all agree on that. But I think that was, the beauty of the connection between the two, the Amway business owners bringing the product to life, and just, what Rich and Jay stand for. And we've continued to bring that DNA and that element of that lifestyle throughout the entire brand. So we've been able to breathe that through the brand, and that's been really cool.
Yeah, that's really great. I'd never heard that story before. And that's so impressive with Rich and Jay. I know for me at that first kind of issue, at the first point of being rescued, that's probably where I end the adventure. And I just turn around and go home and not hire someone to continue the worldwide adventure. That's pretty incredible. But
right.
I think also,
both halfway from Florida, they were like by Cuba, they looked at it as merely a hiccup. And I think that's so exceptional, right? It just speaks to the character and who they were. Sure. And I love that story because we connect it back a lot to, why excess is, the DNA of who we say we are.
Yeah, that is incredible. And that is an important point, that it wasn't just finding a category that was growing or a hot product and pull it in, but you really brought the excess brand in a really authentic way that was part of the brand DNA. And so it really did fit well in the portfolio. I'm sure at first examination, the energy drink market and audience seemed very different from the current ABOs at the time, or those that maybe you were bringing into the business. Can you talk a little bit about what was that kind of new audience, new category? Was that part of the decision process?
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. And I wasn't on the team bringing it in, but I was, like I said, a mere fan sitting on the sidelines watching all of this unfold. And that's where we, developed a relationship with the brand back in the day. But I think, what was interesting is it was at a time where we were able to pioneer the zero revolution, right? It was the zero revolution and sugar-free movement, right? So our energy drinks were just a healthier choice for those people who were drinking diet sodas at the time or diet pop. So we really were able to market it because you're right. We didn't have this massive young generation at Amway at the time that, were out, excited about the new portfolio. So we had to kind of take a different aspect to the selling of the energy drinks and really, really just double clicked on the fact that the low calorie beverages, the zero carbs, the zero sugar, and just really leaned into that. So it was really interesting because one of the key things that Access has always stood for is, even in a lot of times when you had diet sodas and different things out there, they leaned into the taste. They were saying that is our number one, foremost, most important aspect of the brand. And no matter how healthy we create this drink, it has to taste good. So when we launched, we were actually able to, we have the claim through Euromatter to say that we were the first exclusively sugar-free energy drink brand globally. So that's really cool too, but again, we double clicked on the fact what we saw consumers doing, even though we didn't have the younger generation, and just really leaned into that, diet soda, zero calorie, zero, sugar-free revolution.
Yeah, it would have been, probably easier and faster to market to just get another energy drink out there. But again, the audience is different. You looked at the category and where the white space was and positioned differently and developed the product kind of accordingly to say, okay, there's some traction in here, there's some tailwinds, but yet we still need to approach this in a strategic way that is different from everything else. And I think the kind of the being different definitely epitomizes everything within and about the Excess brand, which had to be, I'm sure, ruffle feathers there at corporate, had to be a little bit scary. But can you talk about, instead of trying to make that audience fit within, the current processes and the way of doing business, you all decided to embrace this different approach. Can you talk about the importance of being different and having a difference?
You bet. I think, you brought it up. I mean, especially, when you're bringing a product in from, like, it was a product for them, by them, right? The Amway business owners created it. They brought it to life, and they taught us a lot through that, right? And one of the biggest things, and that was, one of the key learnings that I wanted to speak to, was this deep, authentic partnership with the field, right? And creating that deep partnership, putting them at the center of everything we do. It actually came naturally because we had, the Amway business owners at the center bringing the brand to life. So we learned through them, through their vision, that how critical it was, right, to have Amway business owners at the center of everything, every decision. We collaborated with leaders and their downlines, even on flavor decisions as we launched new flavors, as we brought new product ideas to life. We've even crowdsourced things on social media now for new ideas on campaigns, even the name of our mascot. I mean, we've done so much. And even like different packaging, right? Here's a package that we did. We actually crowdsourced this. This was our 20th anniversary can. And what we learned, right, was that over the course of, and actually it's been about 22 years, we strive to be completely transparent because we didn't want to lose what was originally created at the core, which was, this was a brand created by them, for them. And so there's a couple ways that, like I said, that we've partnered with them. And, in North America, for example, right, in the US business, there is a large Hispanic group, right? They're a large Hispanic force, and within Amway. And whenever we discuss new flavor ideas at different seasons, the different leadership teams would say, hey, what about this flavor? What about this flavor? And, the traditional category, like if you're in brand, the first thing that you do is you go to a flavor house and you say, give me the list of the top bestsellers, for this season, right? And they'll tell you, like, here's the top 5. And that's how a typical category brand manager would go after, like, the top flavor that they're going to launch. Well, I can guarantee you the ones that the Hispanic leaders came to us and brought to us would not have shown up on that list. And so again, through what we had learned about putting them at the center, we leaned into them. And just like how the Excess co-founders said, hey, we believe in this so much, we're willing to take the risk that, yes, we'll buy back the stock. We actually put, some sales goals for those Hispanic leaders and said, hey, we'll launch some of these flavors if you really are committed and you believe in this so much. And so again, that was the beginning. So we launched Naranja. Here's one of the flavors. The orange flavor is very popular among the Hispanic team. And another one was Tamarindo, right? Tamarindo wasn't a flavor, again, that would have come up, but it was an instant success. And to date, it's secured a long-term spot on our flavor list, And so again, I think, partnership on products was huge by leaning into the field and really putting them at center. And another one came when we were launching globally, right? So, the U.S. business is our core business for Excess. It makes up a huge amount of our macro. But when we went into the market launch in Japan in 2011, Japan had an old-fashioned culture, okay? And they hadn't yet broken away from their image of business as a cooking demo or a detergent demo. So they did a lot of this, and they had, a totally different demographic that they were appealing to. So when we went in and launched energy drinks, right, there weren't any products there for people within the Amway portfolio for those that maybe would attract males under the age of 35, right? So that was a big strategy move for us. And so when we entered in with energy drinks, the Japan energy drink, again, very different. It was dominated by these quasi Japanese drug drinks. They were they taste very medicinal. And they claim pharmaceutical effects with taurine and things like that. And the Japan leaders, when they knew this was coming, they were super excited about the launch. And they wanted to launch the exact flavors that we had in the US market. But the Japanese marketing team said, oh, no, we can't do that because we don't think those US flavors will sell well in the Japanese culture, because in Japan, the energy drinks there are medicinal, right? And that shows efficacy. And so, again, we leaned into the field and we listened to both top and young leaders and learned. They launched the US flavors in Japan. And today, Japan's our second leading market for our international, for our globe. And we have first-class partnerships with some of those leaders, and it's just continued into double-digit growth there. And we're just super proud. But again, I think sometimes in marketing or in brand management, we want to believe what all of the category, everything that goes out there in the category, right? But, because Amway is such a unique global business, our Amway business owners all over the world get to see what happens all over the world. And so they get to see the excitement around the different flavors and, the different sports nutrition products and things like that. And that's where, we've created this community of Excess Nation, globally, to really bring together all of the different markets and all the different Amway business owners. And through social and things like that, we're able to feel some excitement around the different launches and things like that. But, very different, again, from the core path of a marketing, where marketing in the past, would say, okay, we're going to do X because that's very traditional marketing. Excess always kind of, explored the non-traditional methods and really, really opened and unveiled, I would say, new opportunities for Amway, which is also very, very exciting. And again, we include our ABO leaders and our ABOs and the Excess community, they are the Excess community, which is also, it's again, we've double tapped onto the creating for them, by them, and instilled that deep trust, which I think, in a direct selling, business, you have to have deep trust to gain participation and, also to help build the brand, essentially. And that's what we did. We double clicked, we leaned into the Amway business owners, and we've done things that were kind of non-traditional in that way of marketing because we believed what they told us. And that was really, really exciting.
Yeah, it has been such a unique process, and that's driven by, it's such a unique audience, and it's really hard. You brought up the word authenticity, and to be able to, that you partnered in a very authentic way with that audience, which is really, really difficult to do. I think all of us at some point have probably tried and failed miserably. And usually it's around that point of authenticity, because that group, they're going to smell something that's inauthentic a mile away. They're going to run, the opposite direction. And they can tell when we as companies and brands are trying too hard to appeal to them. It has to be more natural. It has to be more organic. Can you talk a little bit about some of the ways from a content and a communication standpoint, what were some of the ways that you were kind of authentically able to communicate and connect where, again, I know I've been in that seat trying to connect to that audience where have failed in the past for sure.
Oh, well, like I said, there's been trials and tribulations along, right? I would say that there's no, like you said earlier, excess like to ruffle feathers a little bit. And I think there was a point where one of the leaders at Amway said, if Amway is the Navy, then excess is the pirate ship, right? We're the pirates. And it was with so much respect, right? Because I think in businesses where you're looking, or opportunities where you're looking to breathe new life into something, right? Like really, Wayne, the rationale for eventually buying Access and bringing Access into Amway, right, was because we really needed to build that youth culture. And that was that second learning, which building a youth culture is the eyebrow over how we market, right? Because that meant we had to do things differently. We had to meet them where they are, right? Where, social media and some of direct sellers and things like that, people get nervous. And I would say we were kind of leading that pathway for Amway and better understanding what is the appetite in some of the markets and the leadership and things like that to go into these specific areas. But because we had, the co-founders, next to us, they also helped support us through that. And, they were out in the field consistently. So they were consistently helping support the messaging along with the marketing staff and things like that. But you talk about that authentic piece and having them say, they were kind of like, it's like, when you have a mole in the company, right? They were saying, no, this is accurate. This is true. This is authentic. This is what we're going to do. And like you said, they were a little rogue, because they weren't owned by Amway in the beginning, right? So we had this brand that was kind of, building within Amway. And, it was very much a startup mentality. And they were, like you said, disruptive. And they didn't always adhere to the corporate processes. And especially, like I said, the traditional Amway tactics, marketing tactics. So it was huge, eyes wide open. I think some of the leadership at the time, they were responsible. So it was always kind of like, we wanted to lean into them and learn from them, but we also wanted to pull them back, right? One, like I said, the analogy of them, being the pirates. But what was interesting is when someone said that about them, you know what they did? The team put their arms around the fact that they were pirates, and they started a whole pirate campaign, right? And they said, they passed out pirate pins if you became like a pirate aficionado and you pushed the envelope. And we had pirate, like a limited life edition in Japan for being a pirate, like it was a pirate passion fruit or something. But the whole point was, they took, if they felt like things from Amway, they took it and they made it something really real. And that was what I really learned from them, is that it definitely connected people and it made Amway feel different. And it was just the beginning of building that youth culture, right? Because they reached out to Amway business owners differently. Like you said, they used social. They started doing things, like I said, before Amway was ready, essentially. Amway's, we test things, we pilot things, we do things that are, tested, proven, and tried and true, right? And, they lived in the field. So I think that's just a true, combination of that. And I think that, they traveled all over. They got first passes to get on stages that Amway didn't always have, to get on leader stages and to be able to speak. They held access parties and different things and really just created that energy that dodgeball tournaments. And they knew how to spread positive energy and create intentional value with the ABO leaders and their teams. And when social media emerged, it just kind of continued to take off. And I would say the one goal that we had was they wanted to build their Access Nation, with a very personal touch. So, like I said, putting ABOs at the center, and we've continued to carry that on.
This is DSN's 20th anniversary year, and it's also the 15th anniversary of the annual DSN Global Celebration and Awards event. If there were ever a year to break records, raise the bar, and set a new standard for what a direct selling executive education and recognition event can and should be, this is it. Join us in just 3 weeks as we host the biggest and best event in channel history, taking place Tuesday, April 2nd through Thursday, April 4th at the Irving Convention Center in Irving, Texas. Our registration numbers are shattering all past events, and we want you there for this epic gathering. 80 plus attendees registered for the invitation-only CEO Forum event. Record attendance for the AI workshop and AI roundtable sessions taking place on Tuesday, April 2nd. 40 plus speakers delivering over 20 hours of DSU content, including a special keynote from top-rated presenter Jason Dorsey. 50 billion of revenue represented on stage over the 2 full days of programming, 2 networking opportunities on Tuesday and Wednesday, 16 Bravo Awards, the most we've ever presented at one event, and the reveal of the annual Global 100 list. Record attendance at Global Celebration and live music following, 20 world-class supplier sponsors and partners, and 60 plus DSN supporter companies, all helping to make this event happen. We promise you don't want to miss the networking, recognition, education, and celebration you will find at DSN's 20th anniversary spring event. A reminder that DSU is free for all active corporate direct selling executives, so bring your teams to maximize the learning and ideation opportunities. You can register today at dsnevents.com and secure your spot at the biggest event in channel history.
I love the pirate analogy, and that you and everybody really embraced that and turned it kind of into a badge of honor instead of something that, historically might have a negative connotation or even sound negative to other ABOs. You turned it into this kind of rallying cry and point of pride, which I think is really cool. And I think another really important element to that authenticity that you've stressed is that partnership. That definitely is an audience, that youth audience, that you can't talk at them or assume what they want or need or desire. But the fact that you co-created in so many interesting ways and really kind of brought them to the table, I think is probably the only reason that it did work, really, because keeping them at arm's length, they're not they won't adopt any of it.
Right. And they knew they created this whole collection of gear, right? Like they knew how to create brand ambassadors. They always said, this is the door opener, right? Because you always have an opportunity in every can. But the reality is, through this merchandise, right? Like being an ambassador, showcasing that, the Access brand. So we still have seasonal collections. We created, merchandise and gear so ABOs could go out and represent Access and under the Amway umbrella with the other products. So whatever, business needs that they needed from, tents or, back in the day, business cards, all of that kind of stuff. We created that. And we still have seasonal drops, just really cool stuff like that kind of connects to, some of the seasonal trends you see out there in gear, which again, I think it keeps everything pretty fresh. And anyways, I know gear tends to be a very important badge of honor, especially within the direct selling business. So that was also another unique thing that they did that brought that to life through Amway.
Yeah, again, another potential landmine. It's an easy place to kind of stub your toe, is developing gear for an audience that you think what they want. And especially when things are, trends and styles for the youth culture change so rapidly, trying to guess that, it's going to be so easy to miss the point unless you are partnering with them and bringing them to the creative table.
Yep. And I just wanted to double click on one more thing, like on building a youth engagement, our youth culture. One was through ABO engagement. So at some of our recognition events that, I would say, at our recognition events, we would hold these and, Access kind of brought, I would say, the energy, right? When we would go to like Diamond Club, they would get people in the water doing night manta ray dives, right? That have never swam before. They would do, 3-on-3 basketball tournaments. And we've really doubled down on like, fitness, because that's really the future for us is sports nutrition and everything. And, so we have workouts out on the beach, and, it's really, again, going back to surprising people with experiences that you can only get through Amway. And I love that, because we were able to do that. We get them out there on surfboards at some of these events, these recognition events, and just, show our appreciation for them, but also give them experiences that they can only get through Amway. And I think that's also a really unique signifier through, building a youth culture to show that, recognition and through all these other types of events can be really fun and exciting. And, in a day and age where everybody loves to post kind of things that they're doing and, experiences that they're having, it really helps connect through these shared experiences.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point. When you're building a brand, being able to move beyond just the functional benefits of the product, especially a lifestyle brand like XS, shifting and I guess laddering up to more of those kind of emotional experiences and connection points, and providing those unique ways to experience the product beyond just the consumption of the product definitely is what makes lifelong fans of a brand, lifelong customers. I think that's a really important point.
And don't you think, Wayne, like, I mean, we always say, is it work or is it play? And when you can combine those two seamlessly, like Rich and Jay did when they were, sailing boats and starting flying companies and things that they were just excited to do. By the way, they started a flying company and had never flown, they didn't know how to fly a plane. Wolverine Worldwide, I think it was called. Again, that true inspiration and hearing those conversations and then being able to like go out and do some of these unique things that you've never done before, right? And like you said, you share so much through shared experiences, but, is it work or is it play? When you're having fun, like, I wouldn't have stayed at this company if I didn't love what I absolutely do. And I don't know many people that can actually say that, right? But our ABOs feel the same way. They love what they do. And when you can combine the two, it just makes it just a beautiful harmony.
Absolutely. It is an incredible combination. I think the field and sales are going to reflect when, I'll call it, corporate and the field aren't aligned. Mm-hmm. Sales are going to be, and recruiting, that's going to be reflected in that. And when you can make those two things, operating on the same frequency, marching to the same drum, really incredible and beautiful things can happen. You talked about the importance of co-creation. And I know as part of this, one of the learnings, it moved beyond just the field and also was really an important element to working with your different markets as you rolled this brand out globally. And this also represented kind of a shift between, more centralized innovation, product development, manufacturing, to leaning more on a decentralized approach. And again, the pendulum always swings. There's always an argument around which is better, but getting this right for the right product and in the right areas can make all the difference. And I know it had an impact on XS. Can you talk a little bit about how you co-created with the markets and also about the process? Sorry, and I'm dropping like 3 questions on you like simultaneously.
Yeah, no. Just that whole, that was like, our third biggest learning is to go fast and be in this category, right? You have to deliver, right? So you can't wait 2 years to launch the next thing, right? So what we learned was that to be agile, quicker to market, and create more flexibility, our processes had to change, right? So we couldn't just operate maybe on the Amway processes that existed, right? And because there's so many changing demands in every market, all of the markets are unique. I know anybody that's sitting there from a direct selling and you're in a global business, regulatory alone can stop you at the gate from, creating, a product for more than one market, right? So our first and foremost was we learned through the years, obviously to deepen the trust in the field. But to do that, we had to alleviate their pain points, right? And you guys know, we all sat through COVID and, wow, right? We're all sitting here. We can all, we're able to speak about it. But one of the biggest pain points that really, truly emerged through COVID was our supply chain, right? Because if you don't have product, it can complete, it's disappointment in the field because they can't sell their product to their customer. And so what we learned was about local creation was that if we could manufacture, locally, that was a huge opportunity for us. And Amway was willing to invest in the creation of a state-of-the-art beverage facility right here in Ada. It's like right out here, right outside this office, on Amway campus. And we produce 500 cans a minute. But, we were able to also look into things and say, okay, what makes the most sense? How can we control more of our supply chain? How can we do things, right? So when we also produce, locally in all of the other markets, right? Or we'll have a shared local producer for some of the markets. But what we learned, is if you can produce locally for an on-trend brand that has to create consistently to be agile, that was super important. So, this new excess space is just phenomenal in so many ways because ABOs, Amway business owners can come in, leverage it. It's a great collaborative space. But part of one of the things you double clicked on. So not everybody can go create a state-of-the-art beverage manufacturing facility, totally understand. And, it took many years. This just happened recently within the past few years, post-COVID that we created this just because of the supply chain issues. But local creation is that next learning, right? Where we talked about the third learning is how do you create locally? And what we learned was working independently with each of the markets, instead of creating one access formula for the world, we focus on local creation. And so, we worked with these markets, like here's the most recent, it's the Year of the Dragon, right? So this is the China can. We have a lot of limited edition cans. This is extra burn, blueberry lime. We've got some different immunity type of products, right? So this is the extra shield of energy. But one of the things, and here's the muffin multiplier, and we've got the sports nutrition products all in different markets as well. But one of the things we said was, okay, we know we're not going to be able to generate one formula for the world, and we will work directly with the market, like you just saw, to be able to co-create with them and just create something that's unique and specialized for them, because every market has different tastes and desires and, things like that and trends that are going on. So we are able to do that and maintain a quick to market process, which is pretty exceptional in a big company, right? Because post-acquisition, they allowed us to come in and continue to operate very much like a small independent startup within the bigger piece of Amway, right? Doug told me one day, he said, Brandi, our goal is to learn how to take the learnings from Excess and permeate those into Amway so we can learn from this acquisition, right? For Amway on so many levels. But because, there was a lot of concerns post-acquisition about Amway's ability to sustain and grow the Excess brand, right? Because like we talked about, all the reasons why Excess was being able to be successful was because it was created, by the ABO for the ABO. And so now you have Amway taking over the reins from post-acquisition. And, there was a huge concern around that. I would say, even, at Center, how do we maintain, post-merger and keep that startup mentality, that excitement, that, that drive alive, essentially. And we just really, double tapped into the markets. We kept one of the co-founders on for a little bit to ensure, the transition process. But I think that we didn't skip a beat. And I think that's just a huge, kudos to the entire team and the leadership force who, sometimes it'd be easy, when you look at something that operates independently a little bit. But what's been exciting is we've brought that in now. We've been able to take some of the learnings from Excess and apply those into the Amway processes so that we can learn and get better in so many ways, right? And even like I said, these limited edition cans and things like that are like best in class, ABOs love when you can, create. This was at Achievers this year for North America. These were glow in the dark cans that we were able to create. We've done things for Founders Council where they actually have your name on them. We've just been able to continue to up the ante. We haven't, even though, we're grateful for the co-founders and everything that they brought to the table from the Excess perspective, we've been able to take that energy and continue to drive it to a new place. And like I said, just really, we haven't departed from our roots, our roots from our, the DNA essentially.
Yeah, it's amazing that you're able to keep that spirit of innovation and use brands and business units as these innovation centers and pull it back inside, apply it to the rest of the organization. But that test, learn, scale mentality is amazing. And as a company moves on in years, a lot of times that cycle of innovation or spirit of innovation can get squashed in the bureaucracy and in the years. But again, with Amway, you've been able to really keep it alive and front and center. And Excess is another incredible way, an example that illustrates that. One question I have, I love this idea and how you embrace this local creation. And I know my tune has definitely changed on this throughout my career, where initially, again, I felt that, let's keep things as centralized as possible. Let's not let the independent business owners or markets kind of go rogue. They'll destroy the brand. But you really kind of embraced, again, to that spirit of innovation, embrace their voices, embrace the needs of these markets. I'm curious about the process. How did you make sure that there were enough guardrails in place that, the overall product strategy or brand strategy was still there, but yet they had the flexibility to move around and maybe, design or create, within those guardrails? Can you talk a little bit about how you maintained kind of that fixed but flexible posture with the brand strategy?
Yeah, I think, first of all, we have a really good vision that the market leadership bought into, right, for Access. So I think that was first and foremost was, post-acquisition, they had trust in us, and they also had trust in my leadership, right? The people who were the inspiration for and upheld Excess for us, like including the family, right? They wanted, there was this massive, commitment at the top that said, this will not fail. Therefore, let's all work together and make sure that we put everything we can behind it to ensure that that does not happen. And so having the commitment from the top really helped with this entire process, right? Because then we can work with the markets, and they knew that this wasn't a fleeting thing. Like, this wasn't going away. The commitment was there. And I think things like showcasing the manufacturing center, the beverage manufacturing center, it just shows the commitment from the families. Like, this is not a brand that's going away, right? Like I told you, like in 2002, there was lack of, belief. And I think over the course of over 20 years, we've proven that energy drinks aren't going away. But, where we're going in the future is double clicking in sports nutrition. So to your point, when we've launched into these other international markets to gain their trust, we've had to show them also that Access is more than just energy drinks, right? We are a sports nutrition brand. We are, post-COVID, where it really set us all up that are in the fitness space, right? Where are we going with this? And so to be able to showcase, state-of-the-art projects and products that we are launching within the fitness category, again, the markets leaned into us, right? And trusted us in that future vision. And again, we've been able to create this youth culture. We've been able to keep on trend, products in the market and meet the needs of the expectation of a younger customer and someone in the fitness space, right? Which is really big. And so I feel like, creating a vision, but also not just having a vision, but showing by doing, by executing. So we've always been a fan of work with the willing. So if one market wasn't in on sports nutrition out the gate, we're like, okay, work with the market that is. Showcase a perfect example of what that can look like. And then everybody else wants to join in, right? Because they see the success in the why behind it. So that's really what we've been able to do as a proof point to get believability from the other markets and, really obviously grow the brand from acquisition to where we are today. And to know that it's also a brand within the Amway family is truly exceptional because it works in coordination with all of the other products and the brands, right? And that's also very exciting for us to have a portfolio of products to work in the space of fitness.
Absolutely. And in just a moment, I want to shift into kind of that broader portfolio. I want to end the excess discussion with just maybe one or two more. You brought up an example in Japan where you kind of departed a little bit from the product strategy, where initially you talked about one of the important foundational elements of the product strategy is taste. If it doesn't taste great, if we don't have these unique flavors, if we don't move really quickly with these LTOs, then it won't resonate as well. Can you talk about kind of maybe being a little too flexible with one of those elements of the brand strategy and the impact that had when you kind of shifted away from taste? Just because, again, I think it's a great learning around this test, learn, scale. But can you talk about that example?
Yeah, well, I would say this. So when we were in Japan, and they wanted, all of the energy drinks in the category space were very medicinal, right? They were kind of quasi-drug, kind of like very medicinal tasting. And, typically you go and formulate against the industry competitors, right? You look at what they're doing and you say, okay, here's the formula, like, what does that look like under our brand? And, the Japanese team said, no, we want what the US flavors are. We want to be consistent with, where the innovation and the trends are coming from the US. And, the US has a very sweet palate. For anybody that's been international, that in addition to the medicinal fact of efficacy for these, drinks, I think one of the things that I always came back to working on this brand was using your own entrepreneurial experience, right? So in the end, we could have said, nope, you guys are going to do what the industry is doing in Japan. But there's this gut instinct when you're an entrepreneur, right? And like, let's test it. But we also had this unique sense of us that let's test, and if we fail, we fail, right? And we did fail. We failed a few times. We launched this Excess Gold product that was a functional drink, Excess plus Function, way before function drinks actually existed, right? And it tasted terrible, right? It depends who you ask, but I mean, again, we learned very quickly and early on that taste was a primary predictor of success in the space. We wanted to make the most healthiest drink possible, but we did, we used our gut instinct a lot too. And, we didn't go out and do reams of market research to debate or, with the market or anything. We just said, you know what, we're going to go with your gut, and like us, we're going to try this out and test it. And I think that sometimes with the amount of data that exists in the world today, it's really easy to get consumed by it, right? And because you can find data that can tell your story or your narrative or whatever you want, or you can find data that will debate it, right? So for us, it was really just about leaning in again to the market and what they believed and what their ABOs were telling them and what they were committed to, driving success for. So again, totally different, right? Like I've never seen anything like it, right? Like we just leaned into them, we did it. And again, we're sitting here to talk about it and say it was, it was successful. And that's awesome, right? To be able to have those stories. We have some failure stories too. Like I said, the Excess Gold we launched in North America tasted terrible. And that just really made us deepen our hooks into the fact that taste is primary and something we weren't willing to let go.
Yeah, so many incredible learnings and insights there. It's all part of the innovation process. Being able to take first, I think it's also possible to be too rigid. So I love that you talked about going with your gut at times and listening to the ABOs. That's such an important element. No product launch. You're never gonna be successful with each and every launch, but as long as you learn and then continue to refine the strategy, I think there's so many insights there. My last question on the XS brand. It's obviously a unique audience, and then you had unique audiences within that unique audience. And you talked about the Hispanic and Latino market. It's such an incredible and vibrant and growing community. And so many of our companies are working to create deeper connections into that community. Do you have any insights or learnings on what you did that made those communications, those connections, that engagement with the Hispanic and Latino market successful?
Yeah, I would say it's a lot of one of our lessons learned, which is just putting them at the center, making them feel like, this brand or the Amway business is for them. And here's why, right? Like Naranja, like I said, it's an orange flavor. We did events around this with Tito El Bambino down in Florida, who was like a really hot culture icon for them at the time. like really leaning into them and doing it authentically, right? Like learning from them. I think that's the biggest thing. And when we go to some of these events and we have some of the guys on our team who are Latino, and they're able to go out and they do some soccer events and things like that, and they do trophies, and they truly make people feel like this brand is theirs. And I think obviously we are one of many under Amway, but we really work hard with any different cultures, ethnicities, anything across the plane. We want everyone to see themselves in our brand and feel a part, like this brand was made for them.
I love that. Thank you for that. So shifting now, you talked about the broader portfolio. We mentioned that not only is Amway a really strong and well-known, incredible awareness around the parent brand, Amway itself, but these category brands and product brands, specifically, again, Artistry, Neutralite, these are all incredibly unique brands, incredibly valuable brand assets. And I'm curious how you think about the portfolio. Each of these audiences is fairly different. So how do you handle communications with the field, with the ABOs, even how do you handle convention when you have these multiple audiences that might be, engaging with different products and have very different, psychographics and all of these elements that make them unique? How do you manage multiple audiences and multiple brands simultaneously?
Well, I think, we all have to kind of like know that people don't just sell excess, right? They sell the entire portfolio. And that was one of the things that, I know that, as seeing that, growing up and everything. My grandparents were farmers, but, they sold all the products, right? It wasn't about a brand. They were selling Amway, not, excess and things like that. Now, were they more connected to LOC or a certain brand or, whatever that was? Of course, because everybody has their personal testimony. And that personal testimony is typically how you reach out to someone, right? It's like, oh, I did this, I had this is, this product, is something that I use daily. I think that's the personal connection and the people to people, right? That Amway will always, in direct selling, will always leverage, right? Even with social. Social is one of those things that you can bring all of the brands together, right? And you can talk about, for Amway, we're like with my new title, right? It's the Vice President of Health and Wellbeing Integrated Platforms. The word integrated is very specific. We are trying to integrate the product portfolio, not just across brand, right? So we have specific platforms that we're working through, like fitness. So when you go through a fitness program with Excess, it is no longer about excess. It is about ensuring that we start with a health outcome, like building muscle mass, and you work backwards. And there are products within Neutralite that are also recommended as part of the solution. So I think, the cool thing about Amway's right to win in our value proposition is we don't just play in one of the spaces. We have products, the portfolio, the solutions that we can curate for all different types of health outcomes. So dependent upon what your customer, needs or is looking for, Amway, but what we need to do is ensure that they're educated and they're trained to be able to speak to those different aspects. And I think that's something that's kind of our future vision, is to really, help our ABOs to play in this space and be the center as we focus on delivering best-in-class portfolio of products across these platforms. So less about the brand, more about what the customer needs, and delivering through all of our host of brands, which we're really excited about, because it's a different thinking for Amway, because we always are very much brand specific, and it's like, nope, let's talk about fitness instead of excess, right? Let's talk about healthy aging instead of Neutralite. So when you start looking at things by platform versus brand, it really changes the nature of the game. And that's really where we're kind of focused and where we're headed.
I love that. Considering it a platform versus just thinking about the brand. I think it's such a great insight to focus, again, not just on, these unique siloed categories or brands, but the entire customer journey, the needs they have, helping them to navigate the portfolio. So many amazing insights on what you just shared. So shifting into kind of more of the current and future focus, I know that the company is not pushing more, but maybe creating more of an emphasis around healthy lifestyle. Can you share a little bit about this strategy and this approach that you and the company are taking?
Yeah, I would say, we're in our infancy of designing what that strategy specifically looks like. I would say, we're kind of grounding ourselves, right? Like I was recently appointed to this new position, and we're kind of aligning, the organization to set ourselves up for success in defining what that looks like, Wayne. So we're a little bit in the infancy, but what I would say is that, we want to give, Amway is going to be about helping people. We used to just talk about it as living better, healthier lives, right? And now with all of the research that we're seeing, so we've known that, Amway is about living better, healthier lives. But what we also now, based on all of the information from COVID, and one good thing came out of that, it really was, the emphasis and the focus on, healthier lifestyles, right? And so what we've learned is that we also, even though our lifespan has increased over the years, right? Our lifespan, I can't remember what the average lifespan is now, but everybody thinks that's a really predictor of success in life, right? Like, oh, our lifespan's increasing. That means, things are better. But what we've learned is that the health span of individuals is decreasing very rapidly. So you can live longer, but you can have a really terrible quality of life. And so for Amway, we really want to lean into that health span aspect, not just to live long. We want to ensure that we're set up to provide our ABOs with a value proposition that delivers against helping people live better, healthier, quality lives. And I think that's going to be things that you're going to see coming from Amway here in the near future, where I said, that pivot to platforms and programs, and essentially setting our ABOs up with all of these opportunities to reach a customer based on their specific health outcomes. That's really where we are going to be focusing.
That's great. Again, a very important distinction. I had never really thought about the idea and concept of health span. I think that's really interesting. What about with all the shifts that are happening in the channel, especially around the opportunity with these, this new generation of independent business owners that are coming in? Have there been any shifts or changes in how you message or approach or position the business side, the opportunity? Are there any insights there from Amway?
Yeah, I know. I would say, again, very much in our infancy stage of progressing towards this bigger vision for Amway. But I do know that we are very well aware that the pivot to really, we've always been a health and wellness company, that's part of our DNA, but really doubling down on the strategy where we're ensuring, like I said, that we're offering up these platforms or these programs to our ABOs so that they can be successful in this space where the world is going. I mean, you think about it, where in the world, at what point in time have we ever been in where everyone is aware that they need to make better choices in life, right? I mean, especially in the US, where everything's processed foods and, people have become sedentary. And, for instance, Wayne, we know the more lean muscle you have, it's a key indicator to your increased, your better quality health span, right? We know that. So if we know that, then we should be putting together programs to support that. So our ABOs can share that. And through, scientific studies and things like that, that have valid proof points to give our ABOs that credibility. So they're at the center. We need to give them everything that they need. And I would say it's going to be an awesome journey because, like I said, we are primed at this point in time, post-COVID, everyone, through all of that, we've learned a lot, but we are primed to be at this tipping point, I would say, for Amway. And I'm just so excited because, we've started, all the disciplines are united, we're aligned, and just really excited about this next path for us and what it looks like.
Yeah, we're really excited to follow along on this journey. Again, we learned so much from how Amway approaches things and has done things over the years. Again, an incredible touchstone for all of us. So last question. So as you look back on your experience there, your incredible career at Amway, what do you feel have been one of the greatest leadership lessons that you've learned throughout this time there?
Oh, that's a great question, Wayne. I would say to never go around an ABO. I've learned that I've really understood the business that we're in, and that you have to do everything through the ABOs. And once you learn that, right, in leadership, no matter what your strategy is, it could be in finance, it could be anything here at Amway. But in leadership, if you can help your teams and everybody understand that we are here because of them, and we are here to put them at the center of value creation, so that they can go out and be, because we're B2B to C. I always say, we're not B2C. And that B2B, man, that's where the heartbeat is for us. And, I'll never forget, it was actually Rich back when we were in North America a long time ago, over 20 years ago. He said there was, we have different leadership come in and they propose this big go-to-market kind of, campaign or something. And Rich said, no, we are never going around our ABOs. We go through them. And that just meant a lot to me, because I was like, that is just really, really amazing. And that just stayed with me, because everything that we do and through the Excess brand and where we're going with platforms and programs and, health span, we are going to take this journey, but we are going to go with our ABOs. And that's what is exciting for me.
I love that. That is such an important reminder for all of us to put the ABOs at the center of everything we do, involve them in the process, co-create the way that you, the Excess team, everyone there at Amway has done. Brandi, thank you so much for your time here. Thank you for being an incredible example to all of us in the channel, and please give our best to everybody back there at HQ.
It was an honor to be here with you, Wayne. And like I said, just thank you so much. We're going to continue to, help people live better, longer, healthier lives out there. And I just appreciate you so much. You guys are out there championing everything that we're doing and helping all of us. And that means a lot. And Stuart, all of you guys. So thank you.
Thank you for tuning in. Please take a minute to give a 5-star rating and review to help Direct Approach continue to provide more candid interviews and insights for corporate executives. And please register you and your team now for the Spring 20th Anniversary Celebration events taking place April 2nd through April 4th in Irving, Texas. You can register at dsnevents.com. Thank you for listening and supporting DSN and the Direct Approach podcast.